Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending tonight, our regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting, October 1st, 2020. I ask that we please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Our next section is our public comment section. Is there anyone in the audience for public comment?
There's no indication of public comment. If anyone does have a public comment, please write public comment in the chat box and your name, and we recognize you. And there is a second public comment section at the end of the meeting. Thank you. There's nothing right now, Dan.
Okay. Moving on, our good to know section. Andy?
Yeah, Eversource is coming on the October 15th meeting. I was trying to get them to come to this one, but we couldn't nail them down, but they've agreed to do it on the 15th. So
Okay.
Therefore, we don't have anybody for that. But if I could just jump in before we roll into the rest of the meeting. So we still have a board clerk, and it really helps when people are speaking. If you take the time to say this is Dan Larson or Mark Robert or John Collins, so on and so forth, for the board clerks to take the minutes. Otherwise, it's kind of hard for them to try to understand who made a motion or who made a second. So especially in those specific action items, if you could mention your name before or after you do that, that would be a big help.
Okay, great. I will do my best. Dan Larson saying that.
That was Dan Larson.
That was Dan Larson, the one and only, I think, hopefully. Okay. Next, need the agenda, please.
Next is the town manager's report, item 5.
Okay.
So with that, so some of the activities that I've been working on, I've been working with AHM regarding their budget, along with Ram and Scott Leslie. That went well. And I'm not sure if everybody knows, but Nella Stelzner is retiring from AHM. I think today was her last day. So we thank her for her many years of service to AHM and the communities. We're still working on the bonding package. We're going to be signing those notes next week on October 5th. And just to touch on that briefly, Don, I don't know if you still have that email from Elaine to put up on the board. If not, I could just read it. So just briefly to let you people know what's going on, we went out for the sale for the bond. So we got it back. For your disclosure, at the 10-1 Board of Selectmen meeting, the original estimate repayment schedule indicated a borrowing rate disclosure between 2.25% and 4%. So we thought we were going to come in between those two numbers on a percentage for our payback. With the rate coming in significantly lower, this presents a much savings to the town, and it's outlined below. So this is good news, and I always like to share good news. So the bonding interest rate was purchased at 1.355870. Wow. So the total borrowing interest and cost repayment is $349,466. So this year's 2019-20 interest payment actual amount is $45,485.21. What we budgeted was $210,000 or $255K. So that came in quite a bit less. So that'll give us some more money to work with. So that's great news. So 2021, 2020 fiscal year payment would be $393,638. The bonding project only estimated budgetary income to 2021-22. So the debt payment would be $137,854. So that's a lot less than what we anticipated, and that's because of the town's AAA rating, and there wasn't a lot going on in the stock market that day. So we had 6 bidders, and the coupons that also come with that were much lower. So we've had people in the industry even emailing us at that auction and saying, wow, what a great rate. So that's something to be really happy about.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Dan Larson.
We also celebrated a retirement of Bill Morneau, 26-year employee from the Public Works Department. For the last 26 years, he was the gentleman that took care of the snow plowing at Amston Lake area. So he will be missed, and I'm sure we'll feel that a little bit. So will the people that live out there, because Bill knew that place like the back of his hand. So we wish him well. We did have a little small send-off due to the COVID at the Public Works Garage with pizzas, and we presented him with a plaque mentioning his years of service to the town from myself as a representative from the Board of Selectmen. I've got it in writing that Steve Knopf is going to be leaving the employment of the town of Hebron. He is going back to health district work in another district. So we'll be looking to fill that position as soon as we can. That's the wetlands agent. Working with Eversource on the tree trimming on Old Slocum Road. So this is good news. We've got a commitment from them to go back down there and do a little bit of a more extreme taking of trees on both sides of the road. I've drafted a letter to Eversource and the people, the residents of Hebron, from my office, but with the support of the Board of Selectmen, asking them when they are approached by Eversource to try to give them as much permission as possible. So this will lessen the amount of outages that they've been experiencing in those areas. So I know John was heavily involved in this and talked to some of the people on the street as well as I have. So we've made progress. They've committed the financing to that. And I think that is going to begin fairly soon. So just to show that I'm following up on things that were put in my lap. The health insurance. Go ahead, John.
I said, that's great, Andy. That's John. This is John Collins speaking.
Dan Larson, I also noticed that they were on Reedy Hill today in Mass, Reedy Hill, Hope Valley Road. So hopefully they've got that situation handled. I'm not sure if you knew or whatever was following up on that one.
Yes, that's also from Selectmen Richmond in that area, and the neighbors having multiple outages. What they've agreed to do on a suggestion from us is to look into that with their engineers, and they're putting in more circuits and more fuses, so it won't interrupt the whole distribution as it has every time the power's gone out. So they're hoping to have lease outages instead of the whole loop going out. So that was their remedy to rectify that. So that's being implemented as we speak as well.
Perfect. Okay.
So I started to say the health insurance group, that still continues to go well with our savings and our insurance being where we would hoped it would be. So that's a good indicator. Still working on the library. I'm going to be working with the building committee regarding that roof project and the budget for that. We did have a group give us a quote through CROG, and they had a percentage added in if they were to manage the project, and it came in way over budget. So we're gonna take that on ourselves and GC that and do an RFP and come up with a scope of work. It's just a roof, but we feel we can save the taxpayers a lot of money. So we'll continue to work on that. I've been working with the fire chief. The job descriptions for the EMT shifts for the off hours is implemented. We're going to be sending out that's going to be coming in front of you, but we're going to be sending out a notice to take applications for that position, those positions. So that's moving forward. And I spent a good part of yesterday morning on a CCM meeting, virtual, of course. And I was hoping to have the PowerPoints and the information. It hasn't come out yet, but I was hoping to get that to you to send it to the selectmen. That was all on Eversource rates, Pura, and guidance on future storms. So it was a good meeting. There's a lot going on. Pura's come up with some guidelines for Eversource. So when I get that PowerPoint with those suggestions there, I'll immediately forward to the Board of Selectmen. I was hoping to have that by now, but I don't. We're still working to wrap up the RAND project. I was in a meeting with that today. That's starting to come into sight. There's some discrepancies on some of the punch list items, but we're working that out. And I think we're going to come to a resolution on that rather soon. And that's pretty much what I've been working on for the last couple of weeks. Of course, we had the storm again, and I think because it was a smaller storm and it didn't affect the whole state, we got restoration back in a reasonable amount of time. And that's it.
Perfect, thank you.
I don't think there's any correspondence that need to be reviewed that were in the packet unless somebody wants to. Okay.
Okay, next would be our old business then.
Old business is update on the COVID-19 long-term recovery. And I would look to our long-term recovery person, Peter Casper, to jump in on that.
Okay, thank you, Andy. We did actually, I participated in the first meeting that I was invited to regarding long-term recovery. And so the coordinators that have been identified attended along with a series of state officials. And we had a pretty lengthy meeting, really trying to outline some of the broad areas of concern in the different phases. And there's a meeting coming up in later this month, and really talking about this as a 2+ year timeline. So they really see it long term, and and my objective as I continue to gather information, because there's still some time that's required to develop some subcommittees, is trying to understand if there's an opportunity to think of a small towns like Hebron a little bit differently. Our needs are, they have probably a little narrower scope than some of the other larger communities, and sometimes my initial blush was, hey, if we're lumped into the cities, we may get sort of lost in some of the detail. And so how do we think about it from our perspective regarding things like food distribution and things like that in support of our families. And so first meeting, very informative, a lot of organization, a lot of detail. But as it gets a little bit more germane to Hebron, I hope to have a little bit more specific detail to share. But it was good to be part of it and to see that a lot of work's been done already. There was a representative from the governor's office there, among a few other people, in addition to probably about 50 or 60 people. It was a large meeting. So more to follow, but it's moving forward. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, also on that agenda or next item is the Town of Hebron Emergency Declaration. We said that we would put this on the first agenda in October, so that's why it's here.
Okay. Again, at this point, it just makes sense to continue as we are going, and I don't see a reason to change gears or direction at this time. It sounds as if there is starting to become a rise in COVID-19 cases. I guess there was one here at the school, or at, I'm assuming it was not at the school, but a individual was diagnosed with COVID-19. So they're quarantining, their family are quarantining. And you listen statewide, it sounds like the numbers are creeping up. I want to say up to the 1.7%, if I remember right what I was hearing. So I think it's germane that we maintain our status quo the way we're doing things right now.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Ms. Gail, I thought very carefully about whether or not we wanted to continue emergency declaration, but I think we need to. The governor has his going. I think we need to stay in step. And my concern was us not knowing things, but Andy tells us, he FYIs us, maybe even more than we want. So we know everything that's going on. And I think he needs the opportunity to move real fast instead of having to try and touch base with 5 different people. And then he can tell us what he did. So I'd like to continue it.
Okay. As I say, I just think it's the prudent action to take. Yes, Peter.
Peter Casper, thank you. I think one of the things my opinion has not changed regarding being consistent with the order and allowing Andy that flexibility. But one of the things that you're continuing to hear, and I was at a meeting last night listening to one of our senators in Connecticut, and the concern is more at the governor at the state level than I think at the Hebron level. But there's a lot of criticism that's surfacing about really, governor probably overextending his, using this as an opportunity to not go through the traditional legislative process. I know John's mentioned that before. So my opinion hasn't changed with regarding, I think Andy needs that flexibility, but we need to continue to sort of monitor it because it's not quite as simple as, in terms of there's a bigger issue, but it's more, I think, on a state level and something to be aware of. So my opinion hasn't changed, as I said, but there is definitely some logic around, trying to better understand what the governor's really doing here. But again, I just wanted to, since there was opportunity to provide some opinion, I wanted to do that. So, but my position hasn't changed with regard to Andy. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. I think we'll just stay where we are. Moving on, we've got it right. We have constant communication between all entities, which is something that apparently is not happening on the state level. So at this point, I think we continue as we are for Hebron. Next
would be,
Dan, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, I think we also need to put in on the emergency declaration that we want to review it again at some point.
Oh,
This is
okay.
October 1st, and maybe we want to consider reviewing it sometime during, let's say, December, before the holidays.
We'll go to the first meeting in December. That would be.
Donna, quick. When is it?
I got a calendar right here, of course. It doesn't show.
With my phone. Oh.
you could just say the first meeting in
First
December.
meeting is December 3rd.
Okay.
So we'll review it again December 3rd.
Yeah.
Everybody else in agreement with that? Okay. Everybody thumbs up and okay. Thank you.
Next up is on the screen is update on the Hebron is open for business task force.
Is this your favorite part, Andy, yet, or is it just mine?
No, still yours.
Okay, thank you. Peter Casper, I'll provide a brief update. We are excited to be moving forward with the involvement of the RAM community. We've got a commitment from the DECA folks. They'll be joining us next week at their first meeting to try to establish how we can add the students and that business program at RAM to the task force. And so I'll have an update in the next meeting in terms of the next step, but we're moving forward on that. So very excited about that. We're getting some more activity on the open for business, the cards, but we stalled on our program. The scavenger hunt program did not go very well, didn't get a lot of traction. Timing may be difficult with schools and families to really think about that as an activity with a lot of the distractions. So we're going to table that, and the bingo that was scheduled to launch October 1st, we're going to push that off 30 days as we get some assessment from the business community at RAM, the DECA kids, because we may want to sort of shift where we spend our energies on that. So that's that. We did postpone that, but looking forward to the involvement of the RAM community, see what we can do to take the next level of expanding our connection with the community, especially the young people and the businesses. And so that's the highlight from that. Thank you.
Dan Larson, I have a question, and I'm not sure if it goes to Peter or Randy or who. I know that phase 3 is going to be starting within literally a matter of days.
The 8th, right? Peter,
Yeah,
here. The
October
8th.
8th.
Yeah.
Okay. With that being said, and with cold weather coming in, what do you hear? Hebron, a lot of our businesses are food oriented type businesses. What is their feeling, and do they feel they're going to be able to make it? As the weather gets colder, the outside dining is going to be less popular. I'm just concerned, and I'm just wondering if you've heard any kind of feedback. Any input from?
I can provide a little, Andy, unless you want to go first.
No, go right ahead.
This is Peter Casper. I just was a good point. I was listening to the mayor of Norwich speak last night, and one of the things that was interesting when we talked about phase 3 for the restaurants with a smaller footprint is that even with the COVID, even with the expansion, you still have social distancing. It really isn't going to help them very much. You can't take a small little restaurant and all of a sudden say, hey, you can go to 50% capacity, but you got to have 6 feet of separation. Okay, so I can add 2 more people. So that was the big concern. It was really for communities like ours, a lot of small profile, small square footage businesses on the food side. It really isn't going to help very much. So that's just some perspective I thought was pretty germane and pretty insightful in terms of. I don't think that's a concern.
Dan, I have a comment. Mark Rivera, Dan.
Sure, please, Mark.
So Brain Freezes is going to close shortly. I think at the end of October, not open again till March, for the very reasons you stated. They can't sustain being open and being profitable through the winter. Speaking for something simple, we get to apply for the PPP forgiveness in a few days. And if we get forgiven for that, that would be very helpful. But if we don't get another PPP loan, I don't think we could stay open after November 1st. So I could kind of speak for Troy too. Troy does a better takeout business than most. He's going to try to hang in there. But once you can't sit outside, that's probably 80% of our business gone. And Troy estimates he goes back to like 30% of normal, except maybe on a Thursday or Friday night. So we're going to be struggling again.
Andy?
So I've been meeting with business owners, and both Peter and Mark are spot on. It's just like the executive order. We were all hoping that this thing would have been in a lot better shape where we are right now. Business owners, boards of selectmen, town manager's office. So it's survival of the fittest. If you're small and you don't have a big takeout business, it's going to be tough. Georgina's, as they stated, Troy over at Gina Marie's, the community has been supporting them as far as takeout and doing what they can with outside dining. So it's going to remain to be seen, but it's a concern. I don't know how some of these businesses that don't have the capacity are going to weather. as brain freezers, which are, is a good staple in the center of town, and they're not going to do their decorations because they're not going to be open. So we're starting to feel it, and we were hoping there was an end in sight, but that's not clear as of yet, and it's unfortunate. But it depends on the products they sell. So Mark is 100% correct. If something simple can't sustain on just what they have people come in to take out and support the business, then we're going to start seeing some of them close up.
To follow up on that, it's Mark Rivera. Takeout is better at night, so that's why it's tougher on us, because we close around 4 or so. So the takeout business picks up for supper. So not that they're doing well, but it gives them a little bit of a way to hang in there. So everybody's going to be struggling, I think, very soon. We did, and to be positive, we did pretty well over the summer. People really came out and supported. Speaking for us, at something simple, the tables outside were full a great deal of the time. The people of town were awesome, but they're not going to be sitting out there when it's 30 degrees out and snowing.
Right. So, John Collins, I've had more takeout than I have in my whole life in the last 6 months. But, what about what they're doing in New York, where they're having tents, heated tents? Any chance we can do that? Our restaurants?
I can kind of answer that, and it's unfortunate what's going on. So there are people putting tents up, and the cost of the heaters, because of the demand, has tripled.
Wow.
Not only is it expensive to run those with propane, but those heaters, those outdoor heaters you were seeing, some of the guys were getting those anywhere between $600 to $800. Now I'm hearing there's some of them are into the price range of about $3,000. It's just supply and demand. If you can get them, it's an outrageous price. So that came from the gentleman down at the Gelson House in East Haddam, who has that big area, full-time tenant right along the river. He was telling me that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Dan Larson, there's also, and I can't give you the exact specifics. I was reading it the other night, in the fire marshal's update. They can't close all the sides. You can't make it like a building. You have to leave a certain amount of it open. Otherwise, it's not considered outdoor dining. So there are some logistical issues that have to be overcome with that. It's just expensive at a time when the last thing they need is to be spending more money trying to do an infrastructure. I just don't see it as really a long-term plausible solution for a lot of these places. I'm just very nervous. I'm just very, yes, Peter.
Peter Casper, I'm just listening to all this and have been obviously for a long time. And is there any way to use any of our facilities or the Lions facilities or any way that the town we have the food truck thing? Is there any buildings we could rent or to feature these businesses over the cold weather? Is there anything way out of the box? Because the worst thing we can have is these businesses just closing. So is there any thought, and again, I don't have anything other than just what's popping off the top of my head. Is there any sort of off the wall sort of ideas that we could think about and potentially support our restaurants as an example?
We can look into that. I know the Lions Club has been very helpful with a lot of things, and they're under a lot of regulations too. Luckily, they're very compliant people. They worked very well with the health district and getting permission to have the drive-through truck food, car shows, a couple other events. As far as partnering up with some of the other businesses, we can broach that. I don't think we have, but we could look at that.
Okay, Peter Casper, thank you very much. I think all ideas need to just come spilling out here, because I think like Mark's example of brain freezers and his own concern for something simple. I mean, that hits right close to home, and And so I think we have to exhaust all sort of energy around even some out of the box ideas and thinking about how we can just get creative to help some of the businesses. So thank you for that.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, next on the agenda, item D, under old business, is a steering committee on racial justice and equity. You want me to speak to that, or John, do you want to jump in?
Please.
John Collins. I've been talking with people just to see, who might be available, who might be interested in being on the committee, might be appropriate, who'd be, what are the criteria? And of course, one of the things that I was most, what I thought was most important is that we get diverse people of color on the committee. And I guess I'm satisfied that I think there are people out there that are interested, and good people that are interested in doing this. So I'm doing my door-to-door thing in the community. I've gone to 1,400 doors now in the 4 towns. What I'm finding is actually more diversity than I would have thought than what the numbers are. I guess the first purpose of the committee is to determine, what is the state of things, right? Through surveys or through other kind of fact gathering. And so we need to get a committee together, and we need to determine, right now we have to determine how we're going to choose those people. And I would suggest that we choose, a Democrat and a Republican member, and have them work with Andy and the town, with Donna, and come up with a list of people that might be helpful, and talk about it next week, the next session.
Dan Larson, I would concur with that. I think I've been in more homes since COVID than I have been probably in God knows how long, pre-COVID. It's almost scary, the number of houses I go into for service calls, whatever. And a lot of people who are non-Caucasian, and I gotta say, everybody I talk to, they're shocked that it's even coming up. People that I've known for years, I've talked to. People I was just talking to, people from St. Thomas who've been here for 25 years now, and when I mentioned it to them, they almost looked like deer in the headlights. It was like, what problem? So I think you're right. I think we need to verify first off if there really is an issue. Hebron's, I think, pretty diverse, and I'm very proud to say that from what I can see, Hebron's very open to everybody. But at any rate, yes. So let the town staff see if they can put together a list of names, and then we'll kind of go from there. What's the feeling of the rest of the board?
So John Collins, I think it's a fact finding. I don't want to jump to any conclusions. And I should say, I've gotten a lot of calls, and I've gotten a lot of texts, and there's no hidden agenda here, at all. I think it's a genuine effort to see where we are. I should also say on the other side of it, we've gotten kudos from people. One person said, I wish, I love what you guys are doing, and it makes me want to buy a house in Hebron. So to be open to it, to move with what's happening nationally, to respond to it, and to get facts, and so that there's no question, what the status is of our community, and I can't see any downside.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mark.
I agree with both you and John. Well said. And John, I'm glad that you've gone out and tried to see how people feel, because how would you even know what to do? We're a bunch of white people sitting around trying to decide what's best for people who may be struggling, and we really should be the listeners in this, not the narrators. So I think it's a very reasonable thing to do, and I support it and would participate if asked.
Okay, so we'll work on it and we'll come back at the Board of Selectmen's meeting with some suggestions for you guys to look at. It'll be in the packet, and then you can advise on how you want to proceed if that's the directive.
And Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Peter?
This is Peter. Yeah, one of the things that I think either the next meeting or maybe as Andy, you're thinking about this, I would like to set some objectives regarding timelines for achieving some of the beginning things that we're doing. So, okay, we're gonna have the task force formed by, the goal is by, whatever the dates are, but let's get some actionable items.
Yep.
Some dates would be great, just so we can sort of keep this moving. Like, we should have the leaders defined by next meeting, so they can sort of take a lead role in this dialogue, and then we want the committee formed by this date. So just so maybe we can react to some of your thoughts on that. That would be great. Thank you.
We'll supply you with an outline. It'll be suggested, but it'll be you guys will make the final decision.
Thank you.
And John Collins, I'd love to see a diversity of not only diversity of people of color, Latinos, but I'd also like to see people in our community that have been here a long time, right? Have lived here a long time, and get their perspective on things. So it's not just it's a wide political spectrum and a wide experience within the community. So that's why I originally said 9, because I think it's important that we get everybody's opinion out there.
Yep. Okay. Moving on.
All right, next up. You guys did this once, but with the new software, we had to do a little bit of housekeeping and some of the numbers changed. This would be to approve the fiscal year 2019-20 inter and intra department year-end transfers. So we redid them, and it's a very small amount. So attached is a summary of the year-end inter-department transfers. The transfers were approved by the Board of Finance again on the September 24th regular meeting. So there's a proposed motion there. So the ones you guys already did, we had to make some changes to it because the software didn't quite have it as accurate as we wanted it to. So we went back and redid the ones that weren't right, and these are what we're talking about now.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Dan Larson, move that the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the inter-department transfers for the fiscal year 2019-2020 in the amount of $15,292.36 as presented. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, do a roll call. Mark?
I support the motion. Mark Rivera.
John?
John Collins, aye.
Peter Casper?
Peter Casper, aye.
Gail Richmond? Gail Richmond?
Well, now that I unmuted, I can say Gail Richmond, aye.
and Daniel Larson, aye. Next.
Motion carries. Next would be town clerk update on elections and blanket approval for grant applications for the 2020 election. So this is one of those things. They're coming in now fast and furious, and with the Board of Selectmen only meeting twice a month. There's a note here from Carla Popowitz, the town clerk. She's supposedly in attendance. I haven't looked. Is she here?
He was here.
Yes, she is. So town clerk will be in attendance to provide an update on the absentee ballot processing and the elections process. Also, the town manager and the town clerk are requesting that the Board of Selectmen approve a blanket resolution that will allow for grant applications related to the 2020 elections process. There have been several small grants made available from various sources with no matching funds required to qualify. Please see attached summary from the town clerk. So that was in your packet.
Okay. Did you want to speak to it, Andy, or you want me to? Just as a reminder, if you will, usually grant applications get presented to the Board of Selectmen for their approval. You know, on an individual, what they're asking for is for this blanket, which makes perfect sense. You know, but there is something that did state that they are all supposed to individually come before us. So this would be a slight modification, if you will, from our standard practice. Is that correct, Andy?
Pretty much, yes.
So did Carla want to speak to this?
Well, I kind of, I don't really know what to say. I did supply the information here. We were under a little bit of a time constraints and, things are just rolling rapidly, and our office has been so stressed that when these things came through, we just they were very easy to apply for. So there was no matching grant constraints on any of these. And basically the state basically said that if the town clerks and the registrars of voters took these for two of the grants, the first two that are listed, took these safe poll tutorials that were supplied to us online, that we would qualify to apply for these two small grants. So we just, talked amongst each other and made sure that, that everybody was in compliance so that we could just sign this document and email it to the state. And that's what we did. So, and the town manager's office, we were working with them and, we were just trying to push everything through. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, you really need to talk to the selectmen about this. And, when that came up was when I was doing my historic preservation grant and asking for your, consideration, and your support to apply for that grant, which I do every year. And I was like, gee, I think we probably should put these small grants in front of them as well and let them know, as we mentioned in one of our meetings that I attended, that the state did say that they were going to reimburse us for some of the additional costs for this type of election, where, we need more people, we need more supplies. They're telling us we have to order, how many ballots we have to order, and it just drives the expense to our town up. So anyway, we signed the agreements, the applications, and sent them in. And we have received notification that that money is coming to us, to our town. And yeah, and we have received some of the funds already, so we would just really like it if you guys would make it official for us and just kind of, just say, yes, you agree that we should be applying for these grants, and thank you for staying on top of these things. Yeah, it looks as though for sure we're going to be receiving over $11,000. That's for sure. Some of the money is coming from the state. Some of it is coming from a foundation who, they've offered it's called the Center for Tech and Civic Life organization, and they're giving money to anybody who's applying for it. Basically, that is, obviously it has to go to election expenses. And we just heard from them this week that we can expect a check for $5,000 from them.
The other ones were coming from the state, and there's one opportunity that Donna and I have been talking about that we'd like to apply for a $3,000 grant. It has to do with the additional computer and technology equipment that we needed to order to be prepared for this election. And but that one's a matching grant, and it is $3,000. And we think that we've spent that at least preparing for this. So we would like to apply for that as well.
Okay, perfect, Dan Larson. Okay, Dan Larson, I'll read the resolution. Be it resolved that the Hebron Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes Andrew J. Tierney, Town Manager, and Carla Pompowitz, Town Clerk, to apply for, accept, and receive any and all grants made available related to the 2020 election process. These grants are essential in supporting the work of the registrars and town clerk's offices and to a safe and efficient election process. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none. Mark Rivera.
Mark Rivera, aye.
John Collins.
John Collins, aye.
Peter Casper.
Peter Casper, aye.
Gail Richmond.
Gail Richmond, aye.
And Daniel Larson, aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Carla.
Thank you very much.
Donna.
Thanks, Carla.
I want to I'd like to just tell you if I could have you for one more minute. The process that we have put into place, you know, by using Marion Cilio's meeting room and setting up computers and scanners and whatnot in there as a workspace, and the two people, the election officials that have come in, they've taken their oath and they're processing these ballots. When Fran and I are also processing ballots, but these two ladies are doing the major work. And tomorrow morning, when we arrive to the office, we're going to be putting the postage on 1,700 pieces of mail and hand delivering them to the post office. And the process is just working very, very well. Better than expected. I really thought that we were going to need to hire more people. I do have one more person waiting in the wings for us to give her a call. Right now, it's just been packaging, making the ballot packages, putting them together. Anybody who has applied for a ballot, that application has been processed and the ballot is ready to go into the mail to them tomorrow morning. And but very soon, now that the ballots are going out, they're going to start returning. The ballots will be returned to our office, and at the same time, we're going to be also dealing with the new applications that are coming in, the people who haven't sent their applications yet. So there is going to be a point where ballots are coming and still applications are coming and ballots need to be going out. We might need to call in that third person to work out that detail. So until we get there, we're not exactly sure how the process is going to work. Try to make it work as efficiently as possible. But right now, we're just, with the help of these two ladies, we are just in good shape. I'm just so happy to be able to report that.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much.
Welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next up, proposed amendment to Town Code Chapter 75 Library Ordinance, and then to also schedule a public hearing date.
Okay,
So
so I'll read
I'm sure Gail Richmond would want to chime in at some time, but you can read that if you want.
Sure, I'll read and then we can discuss it. Proposed is spelled wrong. Proposed motion, move to the Hebron Board of Selectmen schedule a virtual public hearing to consider the proposed ordinance amendment to Town Code Chapter 75, Library for Thursday, November 5th, 2020 at 6:30 PM. Okay, with that, open it up for discussion.
Gail Richmond. When Donovan and I wrote this ordinance back in 2013, we knew it was a fluid document that as time went on would have to be adjusted. None of these changes that are in there were really of any great significance. They're taking care of little things to tidy it up. The biggest significance is that when the library went from association to municipal, the library board was going to be comprised of, was going to be split between folks nominated from the association and from the general public at large. We've changed that number now so that the association, as it's decreased in size, will have one less member and the public can get one more. That's the only really significant thing in there. We clarified the part about gifts to the library because people very often will donate money in memory of someone who was a library user. Donna's keeping up with me, jumping around too. Good. So all in all, the library board went over this and we made these changes. And the board is all very satisfied with it. So that's why it is here before us tonight.
Okay, I remember back when we, Dan Larson speaking, I remember when we initially voted this in and a lot of the discussion around the numbers from the association and from the board. And I'm glad to see that the fears were allayed. They were afraid the Board of Selectmen would try to take over the library, which has never been the case as far as I know. And so that's just a brief history to the other board members of when that ordinance was first adopted. When was that?
It was
2013?
2013. This ordinance then, to give a little more background, like you said, the ordinance was how the library went from being an association library to being a municipal one. Back at that time, it all started with the fact when I became president, I realized that the town was basically supporting the library. There wasn't really much funds left. So it seemed to be, well, it needed a furnace, but the town couldn't put a furnace in the building because they could not bond a building they did not own. So that's when we got to work on looking to make it a municipal library. I think the relationship has worked out very well. The public doesn't see any change in using the library, but the town and the library board can work very well together with this. So yes, the association had a little more of an upper hand because the association was signing over the ownership of the land and the building to the town. And they needed to know that they were going to have some say in what was happening. So that, I don't know if anyone else has any more questions for me.
Dan Larson again.
Oh.
I'd also like to, again, give accolades to both Gail and Donna. I mean, Donna spent untold hours, and Gail also putting that original ordinance together. It was quite a feat, quite a feat.
Yeah,
so
Dan,
again,
I think we drove all over the state of Connecticut, visiting both municipal and association libraries. And then we would sit on my dining room table on Saturdays and write the ordinance up. It was a labor of love.
Yep.
It was all donated time.
Okay, so the proposed motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm not sure you can see the screen, but Selectman Casper had his hand up.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry.
Well, thank you, Andy. Peter Casper. Gail, maybe you've covered this, but clearly a lot to be proud of. So congratulations on now, in hindsight, the history that supports all the good work that you and so many others did here. But what was the sort of the catalyst to prompt these revisions now? Was there, I know you mentioned a change in the structure of the members, but was there anything in particular that caused you to want to revisit and make these changes now?
No, there wasn't any problems occurring. It was a question of, like back when we first did this, something silly, when we went and listed that the officers would be president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, because that's what was in place. Now, of course, we realized a couple of years later, we don't need a treasurer. The library board does not have any money. They don't, the library is funded by the town. So we're taking that out to clean it up. So mostly, Peter, it was housekeeping duties.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. I just didn't know if there's any particular that said, hey, let's just start doing this, or it's just a matter of
No, it's
evolution.
just to clean it up. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Great work, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, Dan Larson speaking. Move the Hebron Board of Selectmen schedule a virtual public hearing to consider the proposed ordinance amendment to the Town Code, Chapter 75, Library for Thursday, November 5th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mark Rivera,
Good job, Gail. I vote aye.
Thank you, Mark.
John Collins,
Likewise, John Collins votes aye.
Peter Casper,
Peter Casper, aye.
and Gail Richmond,
Gail Richmond, aye.
and Daniel Larson, myself, aye. Thank you. Motion carries.
Draft agenda for October 15th.
Okay, so again, anyone has anything, please get it into the town manager's office so that it can get added to the agenda items. I can't think of anything that we're missing at this point, but
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
this Gail Richmond, I just wanted to point out to my colleagues that the update on Andy's eval is on that agenda, because when we did his review back in the winter, we said that we would be looking at it mid-year. Well, mid-year passed and we were in the middle of everything else that's been occurring. So it didn't occur, but I thought I should have it put on this next agenda so we can play catch up.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
That makes sense. Okay. So again, as I say, anybody's got anything to add or what have you, please get it in timely fashion so that it can get written up and out to everyone. Okay. So our next item would be
Consent agenda.
So again, motion is to move the Hebron Board of Selectmen approve the following consent agenda items and motions contained therein as if individually adopted. And we have the September 17th, 2020 regular meeting, and then the tax refunds as you see there. make a motion that, actually, where's the
Yes,
motion?
Chairman Larson, we do not have the minutes, so we're going to need to put that onto the next agenda.
Okay, that's good, because I didn't remember seeing them, but I figured it was just me.
We'll get them out as soon as we can. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, it's only item B, the tax refunds as listed. So motion to approve item B, the tax refunds. Mark,
Mark Rivera, aye.
John Collins,
John Collins, aye.
Peter Casper,
Peter Casper, aye.
Gail Richmond,
Gail Richmond, aye.
and Daniel Larson, myself, aye. Okay, I think that brings us to our liaison reports.
Yes, it does.
And Andy, you want to start?
Okay, so as I stated earlier in the town manager report, we're wrapping up the RAM campus improvements. I met with Scott Leslie, Eva, the finance director, and Tom Fenton, who's watching the project for the town of Hebron, and we're sending a letter to Luke's engineers, consultants, and then we're going to be meeting and doing an update to the Board of Education at their next meeting. And a hot topic is WPCA. They haven't had an increase in 9 years. They replaced the meter at the railroad pump station, and the meter that was there originally was reading quite low. So the flows are a lot higher than they were for the last 2 years. So the WPCA decided to try to make that up. And I'm sure some of the selectmen, along with the town manager's office, has heard a lot of pushback. So there's going to be an article in the River East tomorrow, and I'm going to suggest that the WPCA look at hardships or possibly payments or installments. There's some people on fixed incomes. There's some people that have lost their jobs, and clearly we're still in the pandemic that would affect people's ability to pay. So I think that needs to have some further consideration, and we'll be making that suggestion to the WPCA chair and the board. That's it for me, Andy.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
Mark,
Chairman, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the Board of Selectmen doesn't have jurisdiction over the WPCA, and hopefully the next charter will remedy that. But just a point of order information for everybody.
thank you. Okay, Mark.
We're starting with liaison reports, or did you want a comment from me, or
Oh, yeah, whichever, liaison reports or a comment.
are we to that yet? Or I was just going to say, I don't know what that meter's doing, but our bill doubled.
Wow.
So yeah, that must have been a really low reading meter, Andy. So yeah, I got a lot of calls and a lot of texts of people pretty surprised. Tried to give them the best explanation I could, and I imagine you got overwhelmed with that too, Andy, and probably the rest of you selectmen. I think most people's assessment was that their bill doubled.
At least, if not more.
Okay.
Was this possible, Dan Larson, was this possibly the problem where they were thinking there was infiltration of outside waters and stuff, that the meter was just wrong and that wasn't as much leaking into the system as they thought?
The explanation that I got from the WPCA, this is clearly the flow meter for the flows was not reading accurately, and once they corrected it, they recalibrated it twice to make sure, and both times the readings are now correct. So that was quite a spike in flows, so therefore we're being charged for it. But I think maybe some more consideration of trying to make that up may need to be given. It's all asked to be paid in one installment. At Sticker Shock, they kind of advised them to get, even though they had a public hearing, it was sparsely attended and approved. to try to get this communications out ahead of the bill so people didn't have this type of sticker shock and had a chance to prepare or budget possible increase in household expenses. So I know I've received several letters. I've forwarded them and answered a few myself, explaining the outlay, just kind of like what John did, not trying to get the monkey off our backs, but how per statute the town has it set up where the WPCA works outside of the town manager's budget and the Board of Selectmen's preview when setting the rates. So I'm sure they're going to have quite a meeting, which I'm probably going to attend, and we'll go from there. But hopefully they can make some considerations, because I know I got a call from the car wash, and I'm just waiting for the assisted living facility to open that mail, and they'll probably come over. So been working on it.
So Mr. Chairman, John Collins here again. You know, I brought this up before. I never was comfortable with the fact that we have a committee that's essentially taxing the citizens, and it doesn't have any. It's not they are not voted on. They are not democratically elected, and we have no jurisdiction or say over what that tax or what that rate is going to be. Neither does the Board of Finance, and it's always bothered me. And I hope we revisit it, because I think I don't. Well, it isn't 2020 hindsight, but 9 years without some adjustment. I don't know. That doesn't ring right to me. And I think had we had adjustments, we wouldn't be having this sticker shock that we're having right now, especially now in the time of COVID where people are suffering. It's really too bad.
So noted. Yes.
Just maybe John, you could comment, or maybe Andy, I'm not sure, but would we have the ability to look at a different structure of control, or is that also out of our purview?
No, we would have the ability. Right now, the town of Hebron chose to go along with the state statute that allows us to operate in the way that we do, but that can be changed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Dan Larson, would that be a charter change, or what would be involved in that?
I would, if that's something you want me to look into, I would want the town's attorney to write that so I don't misspeak.
Andy, I think I asked the question when we were talking about this before, and he said it was a charter change.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's why I was kind of thinking that may be the case. Okay. Definitely something to keep on the radar. It's something probably for us to attend that virtual meeting when that occurs. Okay. Well, moving on. Liaison reports, Mark. You're on mute.
Thank you, Dan. As Andy commented earlier, Nell is moving on. She served a variety of roles over there and has been a great asset to this community in her AHM role. They've filled her position, and AHM is, I wouldn't say they're struggling, but it's tough when you can't actually see kids. So there's a lot of Zoom and virtual stuff going on, and they're trying to keep all their programs going. So that's commendable. As far as RAM is going, we've had 3 students with COVID, 1 subcontractor. I was pessimistic going back to school, but the kids are really doing a good job, guys. They're wearing their masks. Discipline is down. The amount of students that I interact with for getting in trouble is minimal. So that's very comforting. It's an anxious environment, but the kids are learning. Scott Leslie's done a great job of taking over. Andy, I was skeptical about the new construction in the front, if that was really going to help with traffic. And after 2-3 weeks now, I think it's better. There are a few little changes to be made, and I hope you and Scott can get that ironed out with signage and allowing the buses to have a bigger swing. But good job with that, Andy. And that's working out very well. So guys, we're hanging in there.
Thank you. Gail.
Okay, I got a few things here. Commission on Aging, the annual flu clinic will be held on October 19th. And then beginning in mid-October, Medicare open enrollment will open. And the senior center can help people review the various options and choices that they have. Winter assistance, heating assistance will be accepted beginning October 15th. So for those programs, people should call the senior center at 860-228-1700 to make an appointment or to get more information. The Douglas Library will add an additional day to their schedule of open hours beginning next week on October 5th. Curbside pickup will continue on Fridays when the library is not open. And the next Board of Trustees meeting will be October 19th. The Hebron Board of Ed on Tuesday, September 29th, had a community event to discuss the new Choose Love movement, which is being implemented in the schools to foster social emotional learning. There are 5 units, and those units will be incorporated into the curriculum. That's my report.
Okay, great. Thank you. Peter.
Peter Casper, liaison to the Board of Finance. So Andy covered that. We covered the department transfers, and tax collection was up 1.5% in August. So we should be on pace for 50% collection by October 1st. So we're right on schedule. So that's continues to be very positive. We're getting our grants on time. We talked about the bonding project. So I apologize. I'm just going through my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything. There was some discussion about the schools and going over budget and some concern about that. So clearly, looking at that as an item that will impact us and how we can look at the unassigned fund balance. And so there was dialogue around that, anticipating that we're going to have some offsets potentially that will be necessary as we look at future tax rates. So that was some good dialogue and some legitimate dialogue and some concern. Continued discussion on what I had mentioned in a previous update on the non-lapsing fund request from the Board of Ed, for them looking to take some control over a portion of the funds. And there was dialogue on that, and that'll be a continued discussion. And so I will update you in that regard. And then also, if I speak out of turn on this, please let me know. But our liaison is the chair of the Board of Finance, Dave Eschy. And so if ever during one of my updates I fail to mention something that the board should have heard, or maybe mention an update that is maybe I didn't take notes appropriately, I would appreciate it if he'd be willing to at least raise his hand, and if that's acceptable to the board. I would ask for that courtesy, just because he may have some context or color he wants to add, and that you guys could all benefit from, if that's okay. Not that there's any today, because I probably did a great job, Dave.
Which you did. Great notes. Paying attention. It's good.
Thank you. But if that's okay, I think having him as a liaison, he may be able to shed some light on some things that during my quick update. So I don't have any of those today, Dave, unless I've missed something.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then my last update, the Parks and Rec met this week and went through and really appreciated, wanted to make a special note of appreciating the support that we offered in giving them the audience during our last meeting. So even though, what they were talking about maybe didn't quite align, we're not moving in the exact same direction, but close enough. But they just really wanted to make a point that they really did appreciate the opportunity to join us at our last meeting and take us through some of their thought process on their recommendations for the position. Rich's position and all that. So the prep is going well. They're fully staffed. Obviously, with half the kids, you know, it's a challenge, but they're pleased with how that is being structured. There was an update on the Raymond Brook Trail and, you know, moving ahead on that, and kind of what's the next step on that with some getting some bids on some bridge work and whatnot. But relatively short meeting, and that's what I have. Thank you.
Great, thank you. John.
EDC's met and they reviewed the Hebron informational flip book. They commented, and I think they're going to get another draft next time. And that's it.
Okay, and myself, first go with the Historic Properties Commission. Peter's house, John Menard has done a tremendous job. I believe they finally finished the last of the corner posts on the outside. When they were doing the sill repairs, they noticed that they had been covered up a bunch of rot. This is back from when the house was first acquired by the town. So that's been addressed. There is actually a meeting tomorrow for final colors to be picked out. So the inside of that structure is really looking nice. You know, the town should be extremely proud of the volunteer hours from people like John Menard and so many others have put into that project to make this house literally a gem, you know, of the town. Fire department, I was not able to attend the meeting the other night. I ended up working. What a surprise. But they are working at doing the Thanksgiving dinner for the seniors. They're talking of it being pretty much like a drive-through type thing where all the dinners will be packaged. So that's what's being discussed on that. That's been a program that I'm not even sure how many years we've been doing that, 20 something years, I want to say, you know, for the seniors for Thanksgiving. And I'm glad to see that they've thought out of the box and are coming up with a way that we can still treat our seniors to a Thanksgiving dinner. So more information on that will be following, getting out to the senior center and what have you, so people can sign up for that. And I think that's it. I'm gonna say that's it from me. So,
Okay.
Public comment.
There are no public comments at this time.
Okay. Gail.
I move to adjourn at 8:18 p.m.
Okay.
We set a record?
Well, at this time,
Good job.
Thank you all. Have a great and safe weekend.
Thank you very much. Good night,
All right,
everybody.
see you later.
Good night.